Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this webinar titled Prisoner Reentry, a Tribal Model, highlighting the Muscogee Nation Reintegration Program. My name is Kim Cobb, and I'm a project director at the American Probation and Parole Association, and I will be moderating today's webinar session. We are honored to have Tony Fish, a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation and manager of the Reintegration Program, and Carrie Wyatt, also a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation, and she is a caseworker for the Reintegration Program on the webinar today to talk about their program. We also have Lorraine Samuel on the webinar today, who is a participant, and she is going to share with us her experience in the program. This webinar is being presented today through grant funding from the Bureau of Justice Assistance. APPA would like to thank BJA for their continued support of APPA to provide training, technical assistance, and opportunities for peer-to-peer information sharing, such as today's webinar, to further the development and enhancement of community corrections programs in tribal jurisdictions. I'd like to go over just a couple of quick items before we get started with today's discussion. All participants will remain muted for today's discussion to avoid any feedback or background noise. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available for continued access and viewing on the APPA website within a few days. The PowerPoint will also be made available following the broadcast so that you will have access to all the information and resources presented today, as well as contact information for the presenters. Also, we will be allowing time at the end of today's broadcast to answer questions from the audience. You can submit your questions anytime during the webinar via the question feature. If we are unable to answer all the questions during the live broadcast, we will forward the questions in the queue to the presenters to respond to you, but we will try to get to as many questions as we can. Also, should you have any technical difficulties during today's webinar, please let us know through the question feature or the chat feature. With that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Tony and Carrie.
Thank you, Kim. Certainly is a pleasure to be with you today and to talk about the Muscogee Creek Nation Reintegration Program. The Muscogee Creek Nation Reintegration Program has been in operation almost 10 years. We started in 2005 through tribal legislation to implement a program to help our citizens that were making the transition from prison back into society. It was evident that some of our citizens were falling through the cracks of society and of the preventions that was out there. So it was identified and saw a need for a program such as this. Now in reentry, the prisoner reentry, it's the introduction of ex-prisoners back into society. And prisoners reentry is intended to create safer streets for our citizens. So first and foremost, public safety is our top component in our idea, because we want to make our streets as safe as we can, our communities as safe as we can, and we believe that we ought to protect the public through rehabilitation of our citizens and provide opportunities to deter them from a way of crime and into a atmosphere of healing and forgiveness. We believe that we can restore that person into this atmosphere, and basically and essentially that's our culture that we have here, and some of our beliefs and some of our doctrines that we have. And we also believe that prisoner reentry begins at inception, that once you're sentenced to however much time that you have, that's when reentry needs to take place. That's when we start trying to work with people to get them into programs that the prison currently offers, because it better prepares them for their release once that release time comes. And it helps us further along in the reentry process. Next. Next. Incarceration affects us many different ways. We could have a family member that's incarcerated. I know that, speaking from personal experiences, I've had a few of my family members incarcerated, and it takes a toll on people. We may have a friend, we may have a loved one that maybe is incarcerated or has been maybe the victim of a crime. I know certainly as a tax-paying citizen, takes all of us, when we pay our taxes, a portion of that goes to fund the corrections department. I know in the state of Oklahoma we have an annual budget of over $400 million to provide for the funding of our prisons. Just as being a citizen, incarceration affects us many ways. Simply by legislation of laws that may or may not directly affect us, but there's physical and emotional aspects of how incarceration affects us, because physically we have to be ready to meet the challenges. Emotionally, we have to be ready to meet the challenges. We have to be able to, if we have a loved one coming out, then we need to be able to provide a resource for them. And oftentimes there's no resources available for them, because as we all know that there is policies and procedures in place that automatically exclude people coming out of prison or people with felony convictions from obtaining employment or obtaining housing or even some social service support. So incarceration affects us in many ways, and once we understand that, we are able to provide a greater array of answers to the problems that we face. Next. Now, if you look at the incarceration trends, this here comes from the Justice Policy Institute report, and you'll notice from 1920 to about 1980 that, according to the graph, incarceration grew with population, but overall it was a steady incline. There wasn't a sharp increase in the amount of incarceration until about 1980. And in 1980, we saw a skyrocket of incarceration. And with my time, I have come to understand a couple of reasons why this has happened. Number one, we got tough on crime. Our legislators got fed up basically with the way things were going, and they decided we're going to lock people up and we're going to throw away the key and they'll never get out. And the thought process was we're going to clean up our communities and we're going to clean up our states this way. But nobody ever gave any thought about how we would deal with the issue of prison overpopulation and the mass incarceration that we now have. So incarceration, another reason why that we've come to knowledge of is the fact that mental health facilities started closing down in 1980. Funding was cut for mental health. Facilities were closed, and the mental health patients were basically left to fend for themselves on the streets. And then from the streets, they went into prison. Today, Oklahoma Department of Corrections is the largest mental health provider in the state of Oklahoma. So that alone tells you that where our mental health was then and where it's at now, that we have a steady incline of mental health patients within our prison system. Next. Now, at our program here, we have certain beliefs that we hold true and near and dear to our hearts. We believe every citizen, even an ex-prisoner, is important. Whether you're young, whether you're old, whether you committed a crime or you've never committed a crime, we have a belief in people, and people are important to us. We don't believe in throwing our citizens away. We hold value, and you ask anybody within our nation, that they will tell you that people are our greatest asset. We believe every citizen is capable of change to become a positive and productive citizen. That does not always mean that they will change, but it means that they're capable of change. And I think if we all look back on our lives, that we know that we're not the same people we were 10 years ago or 20 years ago, that we've all made changes in our lives, some for the good, some for the not so good. But we all have that capability. But it's a choice within us that we have to do that. Our job is to lead them through that choice and help support and empower them to effect that change. We believe every citizen is an investment in the nation's strength and sovereignty. And the reason why we believe that is because we're helping those that's not normally serviced by traditional interventions. We believe that every time, every citizen we can reclaim and put them up as a positive, productive, tax-paying citizen, not only have we made our tribe better, but we've made our communities better. We've made our state better, and we also want to make sure that we try to break the chains of abuse and incarceration, and we want to change the outlook and the paths that people choose. So through our efforts, we can reclaim our citizens and restore them back into a culture that embraces healing and restoration of the person. And that's our culture. That's our ceremonial grounds. That is our the things that we do. That is who we are. And who we are is as Creek citizens, that we embrace people. We show forgiveness. Because we all know that, you know, mistakes are what they are. We've all made them. Some people get caught and some people don't. Next. Now, binary opposition. This is something that I thought was very important to add to the webinar today, and that is basically talking about some of the views that we hold as opposed to non-Indians hold. For instance, we think in circles. We think holistically that every aspect of a person has to be addressed, whether it be the mental health side of it. You have to address the physical side of it, the spiritual side of it, and it's important that you address all these needs together instead of putting them in a straight line. A linear approach, basically. For instance, if somebody say somebody robs a store and commits a crime for robbery, they go into prison on a violent offense of robbery, but there's no underlying issues that are found. For instance, there may be a substance abuse issue that led to that robbery. Maybe they were trying to rob the store so they could go out and purchase you know, drugs or something to that effect. But also, it goes much deeper than that. Why are they hooked on drugs? Why are they medicating themselves? Is it a mental health question that we have here? Is it something underlying that we haven't addressed? So we want to take the person as a whole and take a good, hard look at him and see where we're at. Our culture is very, very simple. We only use that which is necessary. We're non-Indians a lot of time are very materialistic, and not saying there's anything wrong in that, but it's just in the way that we perform our duties as a program, that we see that we take only what we need to take, and we teach our clients to do the same. For instance, if we had a river that flowed through some property and we own part of that property, then we only used what water we needed for whatever we needed it for. Where in other cultures and other views, it's more of an ego-centered or individualistic type of thinking, where you may want to dam that river up and keep all the water for yourself, and maybe sell the water, or use the water for yourself. So we have a very unique approach to the way we think. Our behavior is very respectful. It's a reciprocal. You give respect, you get respect type thing. We're very humble in our teachings. We're very humble in the way that we go about addressing our clients, and I think that helps us make them feel welcome. And we know that we're not looking down on them. We're not here to judge them for the mistakes they've made in their past, but we're here to help them and show them the respect. We identify as tribal citizens, and our communication style is very different. We can sit and we can talk all day long, but I think it's in listening where the real work begins. We believe that we sit and we talk to our clients, and they help us develop the plan centered around them. And the plan that Carrie's going to talk about here in just a minute, we take in every aspect. Because if the client does, we can sit there and build a case plan for a client, but if that client doesn't want to do that case plan, and it's not going to work. So it has to be peer-driven. It has to be. We have to take into consideration the wants, the needs, the desires of the client, and build a case plan specifically around them, instead of telling them what we think should happen or what they're going to do and what they're not going to do. So binary opposition. We have a different way, a different approach of how we go about addressing some of these needs. So Carrie Wyatt is a case manager here with the Muscogee Nation Reintegration Program, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of the service side of what we do.
Good afternoon. I just want to say thank you for listening in right now. Again, my name is Carrie Wyatt, and I am the case manager here at the Reintegration Office. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about exactly what we do, the services we provide for our clients, some of the life-sustaining needs that are needed whenever a client is released. The number one is housing. Whenever a client is released, we do make sure that they have proper housing. Sometimes we do have to do a hotel until we can find more permanent stability. Once the housing is made, it needs to be conducted to their mental and physical well-being. So the housing must be manageable for the client after the services are exhausted. We do help with utilities, turning on utilities if they need help a few months with also paying the utility bills. We can help with that. Another life-sustaining need is clothing. Whenever a client is released, I've had a few clients that have had exactly what they were in there with. They had their uniforms, and I had a client that came out that had inmate stamped on the back of her shirt. So she had no clothing. She had nothing. We can help with that. We do $300 in clothing. We ask that some of the clothing is work specified. So we ask that they get some collared shirts, slacks, and on top of the clothing, if they do have a job already lined up, we can provide that assistance if they need a certain attire for the work environment. Like men a lot of times need the steel-toe boots. We can be able to provide those items as well, or any tools that may be needed. Another need is grocery assistance. Whenever they are released, again, they have nothing. So we do help with it's $150 in groceries in the beginning. Once we get the groceries, we do have them set up with either food stamps or commodities through the tribe. Whenever we do the groceries, we actually assist them in shopping, so that way they can be able to balance that amount of money. We ask that they don't get a lot of junk food or steaks, so that way they can be able to budget the difference between like store brand and name brand. And we also help with behavioral health, any kind of medical. A lot of times whenever they are out, the one thing that I do ask is if they are in need of any kind of behavioral health. A lot of the times the answer is no, because sometimes they don't believe that they have a problem. So what I do with my clients is whenever I have them sitting there in front of me, I have them contact behavioral health. Behavioral health goes through a series of questions with them, asking them about substance abuse, mental illness, and if they answer any of those questions with yes, then more than likely they will get an appointment set up with behavioral health. And so we do make sure that they get to those appointments. Some of the classes that we do here, we have some reentry classes. We do 2 weeks of reentry classes actually in the office. These are for clients that are out. We also do provide a few of the classes that are inside the prison. The Thinking for a Change and Victims Impact are 2 of the classes that we not only provide inside the prison, but we also have made them into our reentry classes. The Thinking for a Change just gets the client start to change their way of thinking. I always say that one has to change his way of thinking before he can change his habits. And the victim's impact is another one that we do also here in the office and in the prison system. It just shows that how their actions affect others. It defines who the victims actually are. And the picture on the slide is one of the classes that I have had. We've been doing those well, I've been teaching those classes in the prison system about 3 years now, and they were provided before I started. We also do finance and budgeting, and this just again goes back to the shopping, how to shop wisely, but not only that, but to manage their bills, exactly what they're going to need in order to be able to survive. Relationships. We go over relationship class, which helps build good standing relations with others, such as their parole officers, family, friends, or even coworkers. And also job coaching. That helps prepare them for any interviews that they may have. If that's setting up a resume, we can help them with that. We can set up mock interviews if they are needing some help with that. And also one of the things we have them do is volunteer. We ask that they volunteer within the community, so that way it shows a payback type for them, and it also helps their self-esteem. Next. One of the biggest challenges I think our clients face, besides housing, is employment. A lot of times they have nowhere to go. A lot of people don't want to take that person to work for them because of something that they have in their background. So what we have offered is we have a friendly, offender-friendly job sheet that we do hand out to our clients that they can be able to go through and look at some of the jobs that have hired our clients before. And also we use Tero. Our tribe has started a Tero program, which is a tribal employment rights office, and this helps them be able to, it's like a job bank. They can be able to put all their information, their skills in, and if a job comes open, then our Tero program can be able to place them. We've actually worked very close with Tero. Tero has been wonderful. I've had a few clients that have signed up under Tero and have received a job within the day, some circumstances, and then about a week on others. And also we use employment and training within our tribe. They have a program that will help pay their salary for 90 days if they can find employment. It gives them the chance to show their employer that they have the capability of staying with the job. And we also follow up with employers and do job site visits. This just is so that way we can be able to make sure that our clients are doing what they say that they're going to be doing. The picture here is actually a client that was a part of the program, and he was actually in for murder. He had killed his brother, actually. His brother was beating his mother up whenever he walked in, and but he has completed the program, and to my knowledge, he is still working, I believe, in Texas. So we do have success, a lot of success stories. Some other things of barriers of employment are their felony convictions. We do ask that they are honest with their background because more than likely they will have a background check done on them. They have lack of experience training or lack of adequate housing, and we have a lot of people that are spot jobbers, which they go out and they can, mow a lawn here or there, or they will do some house cleaning, but the spot jobbing is not anything that is going to help them in the long run to continue to pay for their bills. And a lot of them have unstable family dynamics. They had burned a lot of their bridges along the way throughout their time, and so they have a lot of family problems. And transportation is a barrier with employment. A lot of them don't even have their license, don't even have them reinstated. They can't get them reinstated because they owe such a high fee. And that is one thing that we have been able to help with and overcome. We can help with license reinstatement now and help them be able to get their license. And also medical limitations. We have some that are disabled and cannot because of a medical problem. In that time, we do have them go through voc rehab if they have any kind of problems there, or we can help them get it set up with SSI. Next. In order to get past these barriers, we have helped them do the resume preparation. We have them also fill out a weekly job contact list sheet whenever they go out. Depending on the client and their capability, we have them sometimes do 3, 4, 5 jobs a week. They turn in a sheet showing that they are applying for those jobs. Again, we give them the list of offender-friendly employers, so no one has an excuse of saying that there's no one that will hire and someone with a background. And the public transportation, we have worked with that now. We use either the Tulsa transit system, or we have here what is called the CAT system. It's almost like a taxi service. We give them CAT tickets. It's $1 one way, and so that way we can be able to, for them to be able to get to the things they need to. And application for disability, if they need that, we make sure that they get that set up. And training and GED. We try to utilize any of the services that we have with our tribe, and so employment and training has actually came out and stated that if we have at least 4 clients, then they can be able to help get set up for their GED classes. We, for the specialized reentry services, we provide sweetgrass, sage, and cedar and rocks for the sweat lodges to the Native American organizations in the prisons. We also organize this with the chaplain in the prison system. We have actually recently held an art contest at the John Lilly Correctional Facility in Boley. That right there helped a lot of the Native Americans get into their spiritual side. We had some great contestants. We had awarded them with some prizes, money on their books actually, but it got them more into their spiritual side. They could be able to do anything, drawings, beadwork, and we have some of those things that actually are set up in our office for display. Next. One of the service payback, this not only helps to build trust, but to help the individual gain a sense of responsibility and confidence. We ask that our clients give a service payback. We've had several things that our clients have done, such as lawn care. We also did the tornado cleanup in Joplin. We had a group of clients and some staff go over and help clean up that services, and then also the fire victims. In Manford, Oklahoma, there was a ton of homes that were destroyed and property that was lost, and so we had a group of clients and our staff go over to Manford, set up. We took up donations, and we had a cookout. We had our clients serve hot dogs and hamburgers to the victims of that, and also a beautification project. We have worked with the city, and we had our clients go out and do a beautification project with the rodeo grounds. We had some clients go out there. They went and repainted all the stands and the gates and cleaned up. And I actually was there for the very first rodeos after our clients were there, and they recognized our clients for that. They thanked our office and they thanked our clients, and it really looked nice, and it showed a lot of dedication to our clients, what they showed. Advocacy. We have a juvenile program. It is what our adult side does, except for just the juveniles. He can do, his name is Keith Green. He can actually do the exact same thing on the juvenile side as the adult side. The only difference there is he can do more mentoring, and they don't have to be Native American to be able to go through that program if we don't have to spend money. So we can do mentoring on that, and also he does the impaired vision course, which are we call them the beer goggles. We got a golf club or a golf cart, and we set up cones, and we go to the schools, and they put on the goggles to see how it is to drive while they're impaired. And it's not only alcohol, but there are some goggles that they use for drugs also. And he does speak out tours where we can bring some of our clients that have been in, and we go into the school and they talk to the students and let them understand reality of their choices. And we also have legal services. We have contracted with Legal Aid of Oklahoma, and our attorney here, Michael Redmiddlevich, he's actually the first attorney for prison reentry in Oklahoma. And he helps with fines and sets those payments up. If any client comes in with any kind of child support, he can help them set up those payments, and any warrants that they may have. We can be able to try to get those recalled. And we also do prison tours. We've had the local schools, some of the staff of the local schools come out and do the prison tours, and even from our tribe, our tribal members come out, and it just shows people a different side of what we do. It shows them from the inside, and so maybe they can have a better understanding once the person is released. And then also we do court and parole hearings. We can be able to advocate for our clients for that. And we work very closely with Probation and Parole. We make sure on transportation that if they have any office visits with their probation officer. We make sure they do attend these. We have a good relation between us because we keep them informed of everything. We go over the client plan that we have with the client, with their probation officers. We set out their goals. We let them know the long and short-term goals that they have. We do updates. That really depends on each client. Sometimes we only do weekly if we need to. Sometimes it's just a monthly check-in. But we do make sure that we keep in contact with their probation officers. Any assessments, sometimes I've had some probation officers that have required some of my clients to get assessments. We make sure that those assessments are done, and once they are, we make sure that the probation officer, the courts, get copies of those assessments as well. And child support, fines, and fees. We've represented probationers who owe back child support, who haven't been able to keep up with payments, and are prosecuted for contempt, which could result in revocation of probation. So we do help with the fines there and while they are still in as well. We make sure that they are in compliance with their probation and parole fees with monthly payments. With that, it's different because we had talked, or Tony had talked earlier about sometimes the mental capacity of our clients sometimes can't do that on their own. I've had a client recently that she was willing to pay, but she just didn't know exactly how to pay. She was about to send in cash in the mail, so I made sure every month that she had her monthly payments by money order and made sure that those were sent in, and so she could be in compliance. And then also we attend parole hearings. They do have to be on a level 3 and 4 in order for us to be able to attend those parole hearings. We go over the client plan with the parole board, explain the program to them, let them know exactly how it's going to be in the beginning. And because sometimes they are going to have to stay in a hotel setting, and in order for them to be paroled, a lot of times they want them to have an address. And so we make sure that the parole board understands that they will have a permanent address and they will be in compliance. Sometimes we cannot make the parole hearings, and in those times we can do acceptance letters. We can do correspondences, and that's through acceptance letters. It's the same thing as if we were there. In the letters, we put out the rules and the client responsibilities, exactly what our clients are responsible of, the rules that they are to abide by, because we do a lot of the things that probation officers do. We do the drug testing, so we make sure that they are in compliance with that. They will always have that. And we also will do any kind of checks, ring checks, and like I said earlier, with the assessments, so we make sure that everything's done. Next. We have actually did some partnership with some licensed treatment centers in and outpatient. 12 and 12 is one of them that we have used. 12 and 12 is a rehabilitation center. It's out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's a 30, 60 to a 90-day treatment facility. They can provide longer-term living facility if the patient is in need of that. And we also use our behavioral health system also. Like I spoke of earlier, we make sure that our clients, if they need any kind of a treatment, are going to be able to have that treatment. We have used the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe. It's the George Hawkins Memorial Treatment Center. It is a men and women's treatment center, and it's located in Clinton, Oklahoma. And we have recently worked with Chandler and Associates. This is a cognitive restructuring program. They not only provide our assessments for us, but they can also provide counseling. We have worked very well with them. I had a client that I was actually sitting in court with that the judge said, I need you to get an assessment done before 2 weeks. And in the real world, that is very hard to get done pretty quickly. So I'm sitting there in the courtroom on my phone texting Chandler and Associates and said, is there any way you guys can get him in? He needs this in order to be able to get his children back. They got him in the next day. So we have worked very well with them. Once they do get those assessments done, they do email those to me so that way I can be able to get those out to whomever is in need of that. We have partnered with, I talked earlier about the housing, the life-sustaining needs. On housing, we have partnered with local hotels and also landlords. Landlords is one of the hardest one to try to partner with just because they have been burned a lot of times. So what we do is we try to get them, instead of doing a year's lease, we try to get them to do at least a 4 to 6 month lease with our clients. And a lot of the times the reason why they do it is because they know that at least they're going to get payment for 4 months to 6 months. And they know that we are going to be able to go in and do house checks to make sure that they are not, our clients are not abusing the house in any way. And also, like I said earlier, we do some drug testing also. So some of the rules is for the program is if we're housing you, you cannot have any kind of alcohol and, of course, drugs in your home. So the landlords have been okay with that a lot of times because they know we do the random checks. We have partnered with some local department stores, and one of the biggest chains that we have done the biggest changes in Oklahoma that we have done so far is a Kmart. We are able to do a 30-day charge in order to be able to get clothing for our clients. And then also we have partnered with some local grocery stores. We use Okmulgee and some Tulsa stores there. We actually received a grant from the Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice, for $6.5 million to build a transitional living facility. This is going to house both men and women, 36 bed. And then there's also going to be an administrative building that we're going to have. On site, we are going to have a trade for them, a welding shop. So that way, whenever they do finish the program, they can be able to have a trade and be able to successfully be employed. This living facility, they can live there at least a year or longer, depending on the client and their needs. And I do believe groundbreaking should be soon on this. Accountability, we do ask that our clients be accountable for everything, their actions. We ask that they cause no malice towards any of the Muscogee Creek Nation employees or departments, that they keep appointments and be on time. We ask that if they cannot keep those appointments, that they do contact us and let us know, that they give us status updates to us if in any negative reports, if they are to come across a time that they run in with police or anything, that they do give us those reports, that they be good stewards of the program assistance, and the living conditions must be kept neat and clean. Again, we do the house checks to make sure that those things are done. Everything we do is in the best interest of our citizens. We give them a chance with no judgment. In return, we see that this decreases criminal involvement within our community. We feel as if this rehabilitates our citizens, and it protects the public also, and our clients for reoffending, for reincarceration to going back. I have been very thankful, and I feel an honor to be able to work actually within the group, our team that we have here. Everyone is dedicated in what they do. Like I said, we have no judgment towards anyone. Everyone here, we're a family, and we want all of our clients to feel as if they're a part of our family. And we want our clients to know that just because they have done something in their past, it don't make them who they are today. So with this, I am going to let my client, I actually have my client, Lorraine Samuel here, and she is going to just speak a little bit about the perspective on challenges from a client. Lorraine?
Hello, my name is Lorraine Samuel, and I am a client of the Reintegration Program. I just wanted to share with you a little bit about my story and how I came here. The challenges I faced after my incarceration, it took a lot from me. I lost my kids, I lost my home, I lost my job. When I got out, I didn't know where I was going to go. I didn't have anything, no resources or nothing, until I found out about the Reintegration Program. So whenever I got here, and Carrie's my case manager, and immediately she put me in housing in a hotel, and she's helped me with my case plan on finding a job, rehabilitating myself, because without her and the services that they're providing, I wouldn't have anything. I did 2 years on driving under the influence. I know what I did was wrong, and I paid my debt back to society, and I feel like I am almost rehabilitated, but without the services that Carrie and them offered, you know, I couldn't do this by myself. I've heard a lot of girl stories that were in there that were Native American citizens too, and they were actually the ones that told me about the services. And they're the same way that I am. They're worried whenever they get out, they don't have a place. But from what I found out, and I kept in contact with them, and I told them all the services that they provide, is, you know, as far as Tero getting a job, the transportation, they offer the CATS tickets, so that way I won't have a hard time getting back and forth to work. And so far, right now, with the case plan that I'm following with Carrie, I'm actually getting back on my feet. It's a little slow in the process, but, you know, eventually I do got a place, I got a home, I can get my kids back now. And I was just wanting to share that with you, that all the services that they provide, actually, it really is it's an experience. And I feel like, you know, God has blessed me with knowing the knowledge that I know now, and as far as getting myself back together, the lessons that I've learned in this, you know, my family wasn't worth that, being incarcerated for 2 years for a DUI. I was married for 20 years. I got 7 kids, and it seems like after we divorced, my life just went downhill. And of course, I started drinking, and I got my DUI. I went to prison, and now that I got out, I'm actually being able to stand on my feet again and be the strong woman that I was before. And I'm just grateful for the services that they have. Thank you.
I just want to be able to thank everyone right now. Thank Lorraine for coming today and speaking. I know that was hard. That was hard for her. We put this statement up here, Nelson Mandela, no one truly knows a nation until one has been inside its jails. A nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizen, but its lowest ones. This is something we've all done wrong in our lives. Sometimes we just need someone else there for us, giving us a second chance, letting us know that, you know, we're going to make it and we're going to be okay. And I hope that with our program and with getting our program out there, that we can find more people to take action to give everyone else that second chance that they deserve. Because, like Tony said earlier, we do believe that everyone is important and that everyone deserves that second chance. So I just want to say thank you so much.
This picture that's on the slide currently, I'll call that the Dream Team. Kind of give you a little funny history about that. We were talking, and there was a couple of different reentry programs that we've helped establish across the state. One being with the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, another one being with the Cherokee Nation. And we were talking about our future. And they said, you know what, we would like to come to work here at the Reintegration Program. And one of my staff, they told me, they said, if they were to come work with us, then we'd have the Dream Team. I said, we already do have the Dream Team. I said, we're right here in this building because of what we believe, how we believe, and the things that we do identifies who we are. We are a very tight-knit group of people who believe in people. We believe that everybody, like Carrie was saying, everybody is important. And this here is my staff currently, and there's actually a couple more. One of my staff members is actually the second chief of the Muscogee Nation now. So we're very fortunate to be able to have him still working with us in that position. A couple of things that Carrie didn't mention is we've been able to write for some grant money, and we've identified some of our weaknesses through the grant that maybe we could address better. And we talked heavily on transportation, but still we're in rural areas, and one of the sometimes the CATS bus or the transit systems don't run as early as we need them to. So what we've done is we developed our own transportation system. And we currently have a van driver on staff who goes and takes people to their job sites, takes them to their appointments. With probation and parole, takes them to doctor appointments. Whatever the appointment may be or whatever the case may be. It may just be taking them grocery shopping. So we've been able to add that. Another thing is you know, we talked about barriers, and one of the barriers is not having a driver's license. And some of those are just simply reinstatement fees. So we were able to write for some money and be able to go and help people with the reinstatement fees for their driver's license. Because we also feel that if we can get them more self-sufficient, they can take care of themselves in a better way and be able to provide better for their family. We also are instituting a mentoring program where we're setting peers up with people that's been in the same situation, similar situations, and we're setting them up so they have that person, that contact person they can just talk to. Somebody that's not necessarily authoritative, but somebody that's just there to listen. Again, going back to that binary opposition, that somebody is just there to listen to them and to offer some positive feedback. Somebody that's walked in the shoes that they've walked in, somebody that's been there and done that. Because if you was to ask me, you know, about my situation, I've never been to prison, I've never been in jail or anything like that, but So I couldn't fully understand what they're going through. I can have empathy, but I can't fully understand. But somebody that's been there and done that can, and they can bring a better approach than what I can. And I'm constantly learning from them. They're teaching me how to be a better manager, how to be a better director and supervisor. Another aspect of our program is principal trainings. We feel that if we can get some training on the ground. For instance, we're developing one training right now. It's with our arbor care services, and we're teaching them the basics of safety, chainsaw maintenance, how to properly cut a tree, how to limb a tree, how to work a bucket truck, how to set up the signs and different things like that. And by doing this, we're able to pay a stipend for their efforts. And this stipend, they can in turn pay some of their fines and fees, and also pay for their fines and fees, child support, and whatever the case may be. We're working with child support enforcement right now. We have a meeting set up with them where we're going to discuss what our options are and how we can better work together for the common good of people. Whether it's our people, their people, it's people in general. And if you were to ask me what's one of our greatest weaknesses, one of our greatest weaknesses is we cannot help everybody. But it's up to us as individuals to go and do the best we can and help as many people as we can. Whether it's one person giving some leads on some jobs, or some maybe offender-friendly landlords, or you know, we used to have the saying here at the office, it says together we can make a difference. But I want you to know that one can make a difference. Once you start something smoldering, you start something smoking, it's eventually going to catch on fire. And it'll go a long way, and that's kind of what's happened to us here. I'm very fortunate to have the staff that I have that has the heart to do the work that they're doing. It's not really work when you enjoy doing it. It's to us, it's more of a calling in life. We feel that, you know, we're very spiritual people, and we feel the Creator has put us in a position to help others, and that's what our reason for being is. That's why we exist, and that's why we collectively exist. So I challenge each and every one of you to think about why you exist and why you do what you do. Is it simply coincidence that you are here and doing what you're doing, or is it part of a bigger picture, maybe a higher power, so to speak, that we're here doing these things? So with that, I believe we are closing to the end of the webinar. There's my contact information on the screen. That same number right there, you can also reach Carrie. You can follow us on Facebook. We also have a Twitter account with some of our success stories on there. We've done a few of those, and we've shared them. We also have a website that's got some of our information on it. So feel free to email us, to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and any type of assistance we can provide, we'd be more than happy to do so.
Thank you, Tony and Carrie and Lorraine, for being on here today, and especially for Lorraine for sharing your story and telling us how much this program has impacted your life. It's always nice to hear from participants in these programs firsthand. We do have a couple of questions that I wanted to open up for Tony and Carrie and possibly Lorraine to speak to. The first question is, does the Reentry program accept sex offenders, and if so, what special provisions are put in place for this population?
Sex offenders are probably, to answer your question in short, yes, we do accept sex offenders. Now, with that being said, they're probably one of the most, or maybe one of the hardest populations of offenders to manage, simply because of the restrictions that are placed upon them. Now, when I say that, sometimes even though the restrictions are there, sometimes society sees it as, and understandably, nobody wants a sex offender living near you. Nobody wants to hire them. Nobody wants anything, any type of help being done. So one of the things on the administrative side that I do is I have to go out, I have to educate the public about sex offenders. And I say, number one, you know, when the first thing you think of when you say the word sex offender is you automatically think of a rapist or a child molester or so forth. But there's a ton of other crimes out there that can get you labeled as a sex offender. Simply indecent exposure is one of them. We've had a case where a guy was 18 and a girl was 15, and they were living under the same roof in a manor as a husband and wife. The man decides, living with her parents, the man decides he no longer wants to communicate the relationship, so he's going to break the relationship off. As soon as he does, her mom and dad turns him into the authorities, and of course he goes before the judge and gets sentenced to approximately 2 years for statutory rape. But now he comes out as a registered sex offender for the rest of his life. That's one story. We have another story of a young man who was high on methamphetamine, and he was at his apartments, and he went down to the laundry room and used the bathroom in the drain at the laundry room, and a woman and her daughter happened to walk in to do their laundry and caught him. He was under the influence of drugs. And I know that doesn't, I'm not trying to justify what he done, but you know, there's a lot of other things that happen when they get the sex offender label. So I go out and I educate the public about what a sex offender is, and I also educate about how it's important that we don't set things up so rigid that we drive them underground, because understand, public safety is first and foremost. If we drive these guys underground, they're not registered, we don't know anything about them, where they're at, what they're doing, I think it's a detriment to public safety. But we want to increase public safety. We want to increase the awareness and the safety of the public. So being able to have them live in a place and have them registered lawfully and have them set up where they can receive some benefits, I think is very important to society as a whole. And I'll go ahead and pitch this over to Carrie about the, on the case management side, some of the issues that she has dealing with those.
I had a client one time that actually was trying to do everything that he was supposed to be doing. He wanted to live near family, of course, so myself and our attorney, our staff attorney here, took him over to register. When we went in to the police department to register, they stated that he could not register in the town. They stated that they did not allow sex offenders to live there in the town. We knew that some of the rules were they can't live so many feet near a school ground or a park, but that was not what was happening here. So what we did for him is, instead of battling that at the time, we went ahead and allowed him to stay outside of the boundaries with some family and still helped him with services. This right here was to help him, so that way he could be able to register legally in a different county and be able to live legally. And also, we have recently got trailers to where, well, we have a couple of trailers that we pay for monthly if someone's living in them or not, because they are able to house sex offenders because of they're out of the city limits. And so we keep those for our clients as well. And then we also have a portable trailer that we can be able to place if a client may need that, that is registered for a sex offender.
Okay, thank you for addressing that question. Carrie, I think this next question is probably targeted to you. How do the victim impact classes work, and what is the content or structure, and do you use a curriculum?
Yes, the victim impact, it is actually, it's in depth. It's a 13-week course. We go over it's 13 weeks, but we go over 10 core crime topics. And with each one of those topics, we go over exactly how their actions affect the victim. Whenever I start out with the classes in the prison system, the first thing I ask them is, what is a victim? And the majority of them say, you know, who they targeted, that's their victim. A lot of times they don't understand that if they have children, their coworkers, their family members, their neighbors are even the victims. So we do press strongly on that for them to understand. Here recently there has been a few escapes from the prison that I go into. So that's been a really good example for them, because I tell them, I said, okay, you didn't escape, but another person did. But what does that cause you? Because they get on strict lockdown. They do not get canting. They get to take a shower and go eat and get back to their bunk. So we're able to focus on a lot of things about our actions. It's more towards the domino effect, the ripple effect, domino effect, they're same thing. But if you do something, there's two things that it can do. It can affect a person in a positive way or in a negative way. And so it just focuses on that. But it is a 13-week course.
And do crime victims participate and talk about their experience, like a victim crime panel?
There is a victim crime panel. It is different from the victim impact. Once they're out, that's a day class that they go to. In the class that I have, it's actually all of the victims are on video. And so they go and watch a video of each crime topic of a victim speaking, how it has affected their lives, how it has affected their family. And it shows that just because something was done upon a person doesn't mean that it won't have that longing effect on a person.
Okay. The next question is, when you first started the program, what funding did you have in place, and what were the sources of those funds?
We started the program in 2005. It was solely tribal funding, and our funding came from our gaming revenue. We have approximately, I believe, 11 casinos throughout the jurisdictional boundaries of the Muscogee Creek Nation. Muscogee Creek Nation covers 11 counties and parts of 3 more. So we have we touch 11 counties altogether. So we started out solely on tribal funding. We currently exist partly on tribal funding, but we also have grant funding too that we're able to enhance the programs that's in place.
Okay.
Our budget is tribal law, so it comes up for the comprehensive annual budget. I have to prepare a budget every year, and every year my budget increases. I know that in 2005 we were about $500,000, and now we're about 1.4 million impact just from the tribe by itself. And then from there we also have various grant funding that we provide additional services to our clients.
Okay, great. And how many clients do you serve each year?
Each year is a little bit different. This year I know there was a lot more clients that because of the overpopulation of the prison, they have released a lot. I say we have 4 case managers here right now. We serve about 20 at a time each, so probably about 100.
Okay. And do you all have any statistics on the outcomes for your participants, like recidivism data or anything like that?
It's our recidivism rate is 95% success rate.
Okay, so only 5% recidivate.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's all the questions that I have right now. We have a few more slides to run through, so there's still time for you to get a question in if you have one. And we'll be happy to get those to Tony and Carrie and Lorraine if you have any questions. Just very quickly, I wanted to run through some of the federal resources that are available. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar is being provided from BJA. And so just to draw your attention to some of the current solicitations that are out, I know the Coordinated Tribal Assistance Solicitation just recently wrapped up for 2015 funding. But if you go to this website, at the very top of the screen, it will list all of the BJA funding that's available. And you'll just have to read through the qualifications to see if tribal governments are eligible for those. But two that I wanted to draw your attention to, the first one is the Smart Supervision solicitation, and you'll notice that that one is due March 24th. And then the Second Chance Act funding. The one listed on the screen is specifically for adults with co-occurring substance abuse and mental disorders, but they've also just recently released the general Second Chance Act funding. And the unique thing about these funding initiatives is that they're focused solely on reentry initiatives. So if that's something that your community is interested in, these are great opportunities for you to receive some funding to get those started. Just some other BJA resources. I wanted to provide here some publications and some websites that you can visit. Again, all of these materials will be mailed out to you after the webinar, so all of these are hyperlinked for you, so you'll be able just to go straight to the resource that interests you. Some upcoming training that APPA is hosting. These are specifically targeting tribal community corrections personnel. We have registration open for some of these. One that I wanted to draw your attention to is this dialogue on enhanced sentencing authority implementation. If your community is looking into the possibility of implementing enhanced sentencing authority in your community, this is going to be a great event for you to come to. We are going to have tribal leaders at this event that have already implemented enhanced sentencing and are delivering sentences under this new authority to really talk about their journey to implementation and what they had to do to implement this new authority and how it's working for them. So that's currently awaiting BJA approval, but it's going to be happening in Tucson, Arizona in June. Another resource I wanted to bring your attention to is the Tribal Resource Repository. This is a new web-based resource for tribal community corrections personnel. If you look over to the left of the screen, you'll see a couple of tabs there. We have examples of policies and procedures from tribal probation departments and pretrial departments. So if you do not have policies and procedures for your department, this is a good place to kind of get some templates to work from. Also under the Supervision Forms tab, that is a great place to get templates of commonly used supervision forms. We have it broken down by pretrial, probation, and reentry. And so all of the forms that Carrie talked about today on the webinar are posted on this website. And so if you go to the supervision forms and then to the reentry tab, they will be listed there. Some great resources there if you have a reentry program or you're starting one. Lots of great resources here for you to get templates so that you don't have to start from scratch on putting some of these things together. The training and technical assistance pages, any training that's coming up that APPA is a part of or that other tribal TTA partners are providing will be listed here. And then I'll talk about some technical assistance opportunities in a few minutes. Just real quick, these are some of the publications that APPA has out that are available on the repository in that publications tab. So these are all free for you to download. So I encourage you to take a look at these. The Desktop Guide for Tribal Probation is a great publication. In the back of that, it has a directory of screening and assessment tools. So if your community is looking for those kind of resources, that's a great place to get some ideas. If you're looking for technical assistance, APPA has a lot of TA available. Anything that has to do with community supervision, whether it be pretrial, probation, reentry, we have lots of assistance available. A couple examples of what we're currently working on. We're working with Gila River Indian Community on validating their pretrial risk assessment tool. And then we are also working with the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Colorado on putting together a collaborative reentry initiative. So if you have any questions about any of the TA that's available, please feel free to email me. Also, if your community is looking to implement enhanced sentencing authority, we also have some TA available for that. So I encourage you all my contact information is there at the bottom. So please feel free to email me or call me. Also, if you happen to be on the repository and there are examples of forms, supervision forms that you're looking for that you don't see on there, please feel free to email me and I'll be happy to find you an example of a form. Alternately, if you have forms that you would like to make available for other tribes to access on this repository, all you have to do is email those to me, and we'll make sure that we get them posted on there as a resource for other communities. So with that, I just want to remind you that this webinar was recorded and will be available on the APPA website to come back to and look at, or to refer other people to come and check out. We will be emailing all the PowerPoint materials to everyone that participated so that you will have access to all of these resources. And if you have any follow-up questions, I encourage you to email me or to email Tony or Carrie. They are always great about being responsive and sharing their resources. So I encourage you to utilize them as a practical resource in the field as you develop your own reentry programs. So with that, no further questions have come through. So I thank you all for joining us today. And again, we look forward to seeing you on future webinars.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.